We also have where we approve people under the Alaska and Hawaii guidelines, and that's through Falls Church, which is separate from the federal government. So they could still, if they apply, depending on the climate, they could still get approved under those directions.
Great. Well, thank you so much for all you do for our students and for our community. And I hope that you will keep us apprised of how we can continue to support you, especially if legislation does change, what we can do to make sure that through the budget process that we continue to support this program. Thank you.
Thank you guys for all your support, the school board and the superintendent. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, next up on our agenda, we have a presentation from EYA. And I want to just let the school board know this is our first opportunity to see this, and this team has got to be at City Council chambers in 1 hour. So we have 1 hour with them. If you have more questions that go beyond that time, we can collect them and send them to EYA. But this is not the last opportunity to comment on the proposal. So take it away whenever you're ready.
Oh, sorry. Always forget that, no matter how hard I try. I'm not reading emails while we talk. I just have a timer, so I stay on track. So if I'm looking down on my phone, I will not be being rude purposely. So my name is Evan Goldman from EYA. The presentation tonight is from the FCGP Gateway Partners, which is EYA.
Laura Schoenfeld from Hoffman and Associates.
And in absentia, Regency, who is our retail partner. Raphael, who you've met in the past, lives in California, so he's not here today. And then why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Murphy Antoine with Torty Gallison Partners. We're the planners and architects for portions of the project.
Karen White with Walter Phillips, the civil engineer for the project.
Robin Betterell, who you guys have seen a number of times at other meetings, is not here because she's on maternity leave officially.
Yes.
She's not had the baby yet, but we expect it any moment.
You get me for the next 4 months.
Right.
It's going to be great.
Right. If she had come tonight, she probably would have had the baby here, so we felt like that may not be appropriate. So this presentation is a lot of information. It's about 60 slides, but we're going to fly through it very quickly, a few seconds on each slide. But the main goal of this is kind of a preview of what we're going to be submitting as an official SESP application for the high school site in January. And so, I think sometimes people do this. We felt like, given the complexity of the project and, of course, how much meaning it has to the schools and the city, we wanted to get out in front and share preliminary architecture, share preliminary placemaking. You'll see that the site design and the placemaking that we share today is a little bit more developed than the architecture, because that is a portion of the SESP that gets very detailed. You kind of have to have that becomes your building permit when you get your SESP approval, whereas architecture will be a little bit less detailed, but you'll start getting a flavor and a sense for the buildings. All the architecture is black and white, so don't get concerned that the buildings are going to be all black and white. That's just that there is no color drawn on them. But the main point there is very preliminary style, bulk, things like that. And then we'll come back to you all in December, where we'll give you a little bit more of a preview, where we'll start talking materials and color, and then we'll submit formally in January. So with that, let's kick it off.
I think also just to say that we do plan to have a question and answer period at the end. So I don't know if you want questions throughout or if
Maybe we should probably get through it and then do Q&A, because I think there is a lot of information. If we didn't have the time crunch, we wouldn't do that. But given that we have to get over to City Hall, that might make more sense tonight. These are the three parcels in general. Since last we met with all of you, the WMATA team has WMATA has selected a development partner, which is our group, as well as Rushmark. Rushmark is developing the Virginia Tech site, so we now have all of the kind of 30 to 40 acres around the metro being heavily coordinated. So it's just good information to share. And there'll be more information coming out about the Fairfax County comp plan process over the next 6 months or so. So overall, to the right, we've just kind of put in, the beginnings of what a street grid might look like, and those gray boxes are just kind of block diagrams, so don't take those to be buildings. But you can see to the left of this image, the high school site as the plan is looking right now. This kind of commons or part open space in the center that continues over onto the Virginia Tech parcel, and then how you can get all the way to the metro through a really coherent street grid. So everything to the right of the city's property, everything that's in the county, will change over time, but we wanted to start blocking that out. So the first part of this presentation will be about placemaking and site design, and really focus on the commons, or that central park space, which is highlighted in purple. This is that commons relative to some other local open spaces that you might be familiar with. So Mosaic District is the image on the left. Well, ours is the first image, then the Mosaic District to the right of that. And you can see we're longer than that kind of green open space in the center of Mosaic, so we have the ability to do more programming. Pike and Rose, it's very similar to the Main Street there in length. And Pentagon Row, in comparison to their kind of open ice skating space plaza. One of the nice things, of course, is this is just the port portion of that open space that's on our property. If that continues another 300 to 400 feet on the Virginia Tech property, even though one is in the city and one is in the county, it will feel like a bigger open space, which we're excited about. So this is what we submitted in our SEE submission, and you'll see that the concept is very similar to where we are today. We spent the last few months since approval working really hard on kind of creating concepts for what that central space might want to look like. We had one public boards and commissions meeting about this approximately a month ago, 3 weeks ago, to get feedback from Parks and Recreation and Historic and Architecture Committee. And we'll be going back to the boards and commissions tomorrow night as well. But the idea here is to break up that commons into a few different zones. The front door being all the way to the left, which is closest to Route 7, being a kind of a soft space, a lot of green and plantings, and a lot of stormwater management. You then move into a kind of food and beverage zone, which we'll talk about in more detail in a minute. The big open space in the center, another kind of hardscape fun zone that has some food and beverage mixed within it, and then a play area. But this has changed, but the idea, what I wanted to show this drawing for is just to give you a sense of how we start playing around with ideas and trying to fit different pieces into the overall commons. And so as you come in off the Pike, that first front door, off Route 7, that first front door idea is, some sort of artwork and that signifies the entrance to the project, as well as some open space and stormwater management. One of the ideas we have from a placemaking perspective is for the artwork and the placemaking to be have a stormwater management feel to it. And so a number of the elements, the artwork that we'll be creating may have stormwater management themes where you can kind of see stormwater management systems and talk about what we're doing to improve that within the city. And you'll see elements of that right here in this slide where the upper left image is. Those are stormwater management containers and then a stormwater management system in the center that during the day can be a nice place if it's not raining to sit outside and eat your lunch. On the bottom right, similarly, that's a great place for kids to run around, but also access stormwater management when it's a storm. On the bottom left, you're seeing a kind of a retail kiosk building with a kind of water space behind it that can act for play as well as stormwater management. So we have some ideas for how we can integrate that into the project over time. As we get further to Zone 2, this is kind of that food and beverage zone. And the idea there is whether it's a coffee shop or an ice cream shop, it's something that's small and grab and go, and you can sit outside on a nice day. We're looking to that building or that kiosk to have green roof that's visible, to have a trellis element. And then the image on the bottom, second to the bottom right, is this idea of a runnel, which is kind of a long linear or horizontal space that captures water, that may be able to capture water from the green roof and bring it down to the stormwater management area. So these things, in some instances, can become elements of play. In some instances, can become visual for educational purposes in coordination with the school. The other part in that food and beverage zone would be to have activities. This you'll see in our final version. This has now moved a little bit within the plan. But whether it's ping pong tables or outdoors chess or things that people can engage with at different times during the day, whether you're kids during the day that are in preschool and aren't in school yet, or a Saturday afternoon for anybody and evenings for adults even. These types of things are really engaging and have been successful in other projects around the country. We'll show you those in a moment. As we get into the park space, we're looking at kind of a large open green space. We're looking at some rolling hills so that kids and adults can sit back. You can watch a movie. You can roll and play on them. That bottom right series of images is actually climbable art. So this might be a place where we have some sort of artwork that becomes a beautiful piece of art, but then also is useful as a play area for kids. City Falls Church, as you know, just has a very family-oriented feel, and we think that a lot of families with kids will be here during the weekends. And so we want to make sure that the things we're doing from a placemaking and art perspective translate really well into elements for children as well. So the big lawn, a place where we can have events, movie nights, gatherings, music, yoga in the park, and so you can get a sense for what the size and scale of that might feel like. But even then, having little elements of art and sculpture, the fun avocado seats or the little bunnies, so that throughout the entire commons there's something of interest. The next zone, I apologize, I know I'm going very fast here. The next zone, as you get closer to Virginia Tech, the second food and beverage zone, we're seeing some sort of a restaurant space that might be 2 stories, bleachers, kind of educational bleachers that go up the side of the kiosk building that can be used for outdoor classrooms during the day, can be used for parent and me classes, for music, for people to sit and listen to music, or just to sit out and have your lunch. There was actually an article in the Washington Post recently how those are becoming overplayed. We just don't believe so. We think they're great. The fire pit element, which has been really successful at the wharf, where you can sit outside and have s'mores in the evening. Oh, and swings. Sorry, the upper right image. You'll see in our final we have some ideas about swings. And then we have a kid zone. This is shifted in the plan to a more internal space, but some sort of water fun element, splash park, something for kids to enjoy. Plenty of outdoor seating for people of all ages. We'll have senior housing on site as well, and so wanting to make sure that there's places for people to engage during the day. And then on the upper left is that idea of this kind of rooftop deck space above the outside restaurant. And that bottom left image is what we wanted to pick up on there is this idea that even the outdoor splash park, in the winter, we want to think about what that's going to look and feel like. So there it's a Chinese walking circle that, during the summer is going to be a splash park, but in the winter could be engaging as well. And then iconic art and little art murals throughout the project. These are kind of the beginning of ideas of things that we've liked in other projects. We haven't gotten far enough along yet to pick these, but we will work with all of you over the next year or two as we get more refined in our placemaking concept. But, fun things, that upper right image is our bike racks where we, you can see that last one has a locker to it. So it's just, you're modifying one of the 12 bike racks and making it into something fun. The bottom left image, given the slope on Haycock, we've talked about whether there needs to be something that almost highlights or makes fun of the fact that this is a 26-foot slope you're walking up, almost like you're hiking up a hill. So we'll think of kind of creative ways to have placemaking throughout that's of interest. So through that exercise, we came up with this idea of conceptual zones for the commons, and these helped us inform where we think some of those items want to be. And we, instead of having kind of 2 parallel sidewalks that ran up both sides of the center commons, we have really leaned more now towards a sidewalk that really meanders through the common space. You can see that heavy black line. Oh, this pointer works. Perfect. This heavy black line that kind of meanders so that you're going through a series of rooms as you're experiencing the commons. We, of course, have sidewalks along both edges here that go straight, and we have bike lanes among both of those edges, too. But it creates this series of rooms. And so now where we're headed is something more like this. This is the overall site plan of the commons. And this is kind of our latest diagram and plan. And so you're starting to really see the green space in the center with the kind of topography hills on this edge. You're starting to see this idea of a splash park over here on this side near the ice cream plaza. So if you're sitting out and having ice cream, your kids are playing in the splash park and they feel protected from the rest of the elements. This whole area being stormwater management, potentially with a bridge feature. As you get here, this has actually changed a little bit. I apologize. This is a slightly older plan. This is hardscape here now, and with outdoor games and ping pong and other fun activities. As you go back towards fireplace, seating area, and then the 2-story restaurant leading up towards Virginia Tech. This is a plan. The idea when we submit our SESP is we'll submit this along with a placemaking amenity plan that will get into a little bit more detail about art and lighting and shade structures and things of that sort. And we'll work through all that with you over the next 6 months. There we go. That's the latest plan. So programmable spaces, you can see this has changed just slightly with these kind of hill areas within the green. You can kind of see the hardscape plaza here going into the more dusty sand area here. This will be programmed with games and outside furniture. But what we like about that is it allows really all of this to become an event space when needed. So everyday use, this is what you're looking at, where the whole commons is open and the streets around it are used by cars. But we have the ability, for movie night to close off this street in the middle and have a really great open space here. I apologize, I can't remember. I think this was about half an acre open space where you can have movie night, with a screen potentially down here. You can watch the movie from the rooftop or the stairs. the hardscape or the open space, anywhere within that space and fit a whole. You can see all the